won't let me keep it. Hallelujah.
Oh my God. Yeah, I don't want to know what we was just talking about, but okay. I can't even put it together. Oh my God.
Good.
Woo. Okay. All right, y'all. Welcome back. Hold on. Ay, 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 ay.
That's good. That's good.
All
That's
right, y'all.
good.
Welcome back to R.O.S.E Radio. We are here to help you remove obstacles from the DMV and beyond. Um, this has been an interesting start off already, but it has also been a very interesting year so far, and we
Sure is.
are not even all the way in 3 months yet. A lot has transpired over the last, I'd say, month and a half, um, including my travels, including big homies, events and things he have going on. But at this time, we're going to start off with a prayer, um, so we can go ahead and get the segment started, and then we'll jump into everything. I got two topics at the top of mine, so I'm gonna try to remember those really quick because one has went really viral. It has bothered me a little bit,
Mm.
but we'll talk about it. Let's get a
Hmm.
prayer.
All right. Let's go for the Lord. Eternal One, in the name of Jesus, this is the day that you've made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Let the words of our mouth and the meditation of our heart be acceptable in thy sight. O Lord, you are our strength and our Redeemer. Help us to decrease, let your spirit increase. Help us to speak to everybody who has an ear to hear. Help us to be able to build community. You said if you be lifted up, that you will draw all men and women, your people. So if your people who are called by your name humble themselves and pray and seek your face and turn from their wicked ways, then will they hear from heaven and you'll forgive their sins and heal the land. The land needs to be healed, and we just trust that you're going to speak what needs to be said in this hour during this recording to bless your people, so we can move forward and be light in the midst of darkness. We pray all this in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I know that light just hit me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, don't let nobody stop your child. Woo! See, I can't even
Yeah,
get it.
yeah. I watched interesting. Just before we get into the segment, two things of. I mean, I do tend to watch the main segments or Divide for the Breakfast Club, but the
Mm.
two things that are longer because a lot of times when they have their interviews, it goes about an hour. But
And
I
it's funny
watched
you say that because that was one of the topics on top of mine. But I was trying to say and get out was don't let nobody stop your shine. Okay,
right.
you
Felicia
are the
Rashad
light,
said that her
and
be light because
the
she was
more
talking,
that you get,
because Lauren LaRosa, the fellow Dell State person to, Mr. PG, but still with Lauren, she was asking Felicia Rashad, Queen Rashad, about was it hard to have that burn? She's like, just be light, carry light. And she said so effortlessly. And that goes into the other person I watched, even though I know some people said they may not be a fan of that. I know Kevin on stage did a spoof of that, like feeling the Holy Spirit off of that segment of the light segment, because that's how I came to doing. I watched the whole thing. It's a very good worth in watching 50 plus minutes for Felicia Shot. But also for the Kevin on stage thing, even if you aren't the biggest fan, his road, his backstory, it was quite interesting. I mean, I heard the one thing to where he got fired by he was making copies of his shows at work and caught with that. But still, some of the other things he had to go through, and his wife
mm,
standing by him, and his two kids, well, their origin story is really phenomenal. Even about how he shows up. But technically, he's a Christian comedian. Is he a church comedian? No. But still, some things as far as clean comics, and I identify, this is a family show. We're not going to say anything crass neither. But still, he said he don't curse. There's a certain word which some of us church folks
Who
say, but
don't?
we're not Kevin on stage, curse.
Okay.
But there's a certain word which you're not going to say on the show because it's a family show. But still, there's certain words which us church folks ask us, DM, follow me at Big Homie Poetry, and I might tell you what it is. BIGHOMEY, like it's spelled on the screen, poetry. But still, some of us who don't curse, but we say a word that sometimes offends. Generally, we don't say in our general vernacular, but just conversation we're cool with. Yeah, you can probably read between the lines of that. But still, he said about how that is and just talking about some life things. And I can appreciate that. That depending on what it is, and even with, I say prayers at the beginning of every podcast, but still, knowing your settings. So for some of y'all who are grown, because we know we have some college students who watch this or whatever the case is. And I've even talked this with Mr. PG about some of that stuff. But, for some of my colleagues, I do spoken word, and some of them love to speak in tongues that are not quite, colorful. I mean, colorful. They like the color that is not appropriate in grade school. Is not
Oh,
appropriate in some workplaces. So it's just with that you got. I mean, and that could be a term for another because some people who want to always be no filter talk about code switching, but still you got to know about what's appropriate for a particular place. Because think about it, with some teachers, especially if you're dealing with little kids, you talk inappropriate, your job gonna be gone as quick as it can. So it's just there's certain things to where you have to learn how to speak a particular way. And even if you're in a type of job where you can say some particular things, if you don't know how to move in some of those business terms, especially if you got a book for places, then you might be shortening yourself versus expanding your vocabulary. Because I've heard one of my homegirls, her mother, and I'm glad her mother's still with us and everything, but when she was a grade school teacher, when some of her junior high school students would try to cuss her out, she's like, that's all you have in your vocabulary? You need to expand your vocabulary. I mean, just say it ever so calmly. So it's just but that is true because usually folks will be cussing every other word. They haven't expanded their vocabulary. Think about their words, and sometimes people say, if I tell people about themselves, because sometimes they'll be ever so calm, they'll be halfway home and they'll realize what I said in Jesus' name to them.
yeah, you pray.
Rebuke them, tell the truth in love. Hallelujah. Come on.
In the
Be
name.
light. Be light
Okay.
in the midst of darkness. Yes.
All right, so I wasn't too impressed. We're gonna circle back to the Breakfast Club thing. So this year has already started off with a lot of dramatics, as we all know. A lot of my travel started off real heavy, and then it got out of control. And when I say I'm exhausted, I'm like, I was running on fumes, and I'm truly exhausted. And as for anybody out there, if you have PTO and you never really take off work, I'm going to tell you this: take off, because I'm enjoying my PTO. Okay, it's something I haven't done in years to actually relax. There was always either a family event or something that was tragic that happened, and I had to use PTO. But to use your PTO in the time frame of relaxing, recharging, trying to get yourself back in order, and just having down days when you just don't do anything at all, that makes a huge difference. So I was reviewing what was going on because I was on Twitter and it was just like all of these alerts was going off on my phone. Number one, Jess with the Mess is from Baltimore. And, everybody always have this riff about the DMV. Baltimore is not the DMV, whatever the case may be. But she close enough to home. Let's just say that.
I mean, no, I claim it's the region, but it's not the DMV. But yeah.
Right. But I'm just saying in general, they always have a riff about Baltimore. But, I just kind of feel like with being a professional that helps students and a professional that try to guide students in the right direction.
Did your screen freeze or you just pausing? PG, hello. Am I on the screen? Are you talking? Hello. Ooh. Okay. Well, I see the recording's still going. So until he comes back on, I would just say, so I saw that. And that's interesting. I'm going to see where he's going to go with the questions because I'm just the co host. But still, I think that there was some interesting things with that interview as far as I saw how it unfolded. I feel like that even though some things get tricky, that it was good how it kind of played out. Only time will see if it really works. But still, she brought Lauren LaRosa. I realize it's kind of hard with pregnancy leave, with when you take maternity leave. But still, with that, there was some beef and there was some tension. Now, I heard that there was some other things that made sense as far as with the male hosts and about whether or not that they had her back or not. So that became valid with that. Welcome back. Welcome
This
back.
thing,
Welcome back. Welcome back. We can
I'm
put Mason in that too.
I'm gonna show you how the devil be be playing.
So no,
See,
I was kind of going just with the mess thing. So I mean, I don't know, and that's kind of the mess because maybe the spirit of those behind Jessica Robin Moore was like, don't put your. I mean, I support her. It was a weird situation, but there's some things I said when talking during those 30-ish seconds is less than a minute. I'm not sure where you're going to go with it, but still, there was a lot with it. I still believe in if you're a believer, for we know that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to their purpose. I mean, I know Jess don't necessarily. I can't say what she does professor now. I know she be cussing. I know she rough around the edges a little, but she's funny. I've seen her show. I won tickets to her show last year.
no, she's very
And
talented.
just, who, huh?
She's very
Yeah, she's
talented.
very talented. And actually, that's why I love the most about it. That I think as we got to pivot with a whole lot of stuff, I think they're trying to find a way. And actually, that's a teachable moment. We're going to see if it lasts, but still
Mm-hmm.
trying to find a way of how
Oh,
she
well, there was
shines.
already a semi-resolution already.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say is so realizing she's a comedian. Like, the girl who is the fill-in or the floater is a producer. She's good with the news. She's good with the entertainment news. She has wit, but she's not a comedian like Jess is. So there's some other things which she's doing which she's able to shine. And a lot of these big shows from the Ricky Smiley Morning Show to the Steve Harvey Morning Show. And a lot of them have 4 or 5 and more on the panel. So if Lauren's coming in just doing entertainment news, there's the 3 of them. I see how they do with interviews.
Right.
That's cool. That's making room. I mean, there's some other stuff. Or, okay, they dissolved Jess with the mess, but that was just an evolution of the rumor report. And now they have the latest with Lauren. But I think they still have just fixed my mess. And that's a way for her to be kind of funny, have her be real, tap into her strengths. Now, some of y'all,
Mm-hmm.
I should look up the book, but one of the things that y'all can look, Google's your friend. Y'all do that all the time. Is like, I remember reading a book years ago called Now Discover Your Strengths. That if you have a strength based organization, now, granted, sometimes challenge yourself by like you may not know something, so learning curve, get with that. But then again, there are some things to whereas if you're trying to go on all cylinders, and do your
Mm-hmm.
best. Put
Right.
your best stuff out there. I did an event last week that thankfully was full, but I think since the university was hiring me, it's fine. I spoke and I did what I needed to do at the university. But when I looked at the flyer, I was saying to Mr. PG earlier, I mean, I made this joke when I do my grant talks for grant writing. I said for graphic design, if my life depends on it, my life might be in danger. I looked at this flyer, I was like, this is horrible. I could have done better. And I know my skills are subpar. It was like cried stuff or whatever the case. So again, it is what it is. So sometimes it's the time of like, let's try this stuff out. And then there's other times where you put your best foot forward. So I feel like,
Right.
realizing you already have the top radio show in the land, urban radio, a voice for the culture, and you have a person who's a rising talent, very good, or like we are in this culture, I think just has more social media followers than everybody else, but still how to
Mm-hmm.
incorporate and leverage all that. I feel like they're doing that. So hopefully everybody generally likes each other. But then again, when stuff is about business and business be men and women, well, I love how I'm quoting scripture and all this other stuff. It's just like
Yeah.
some of the stuff I realized that how some folks doesn't mean that you gotta be mean to them, but
Mm-hmm.
cordial, whatever, like on trying to work. Because some
Right.
people, and even what you said about Baltimore, because Baltimore, I'm not going to call it compared to New York or whatever, but I still realize sometimes people can have
No.
cold looks. I mean, I'm just saying for Jess, like Jess Hilarious, she can be friendly, but still, with whoever else, she's trying to work through all that, and then she had her venting session. People they overuse crash out already, but
Right.
still, in some way, whoever I mean, they might need a producer's award. Whoever was able to make that pivot within 12 hours of like, yo, she had that broadcast, and like, let's just flip this so this can work out. And then we had a debriefing the next day. It was good. I mean, I don't listen to the show in real time, but I watched it, and then that was
Right.
good.
Well, I
And you
listen
want
to
to
it
have people
some.
like that on your team to be able to do those types of pivots when something unexpected that could be detrimental and make it positive. But go ahead.
Right. No, I listen to it sometimes, and I never watched it before, but I didn't start watching until she went on there.
Mm-hmm.
Like officially, like watched episodes through and through. Never really watched until she went on there. Because it kind of like championed already of where she had started off on her own on Instagram. So, everybody who was following her in the beginning, we saw her raise her son and all the stuff she was going through. She kept it real on both ends of the spectrum. It wasn't just she was making fun of people and not saying anything about herself or her own situation. But I kind of felt like this, and I had this discussion with a number of college students, and it came up only because we were talking about, opportunities that you receive like after graduation or networking, mentoring, like relationship building. So like all of this just kind of just like stirred the pot. And I was like, okay. I was like, so give me your ideas or your thoughts of what you believe it was. And they were basically like, oh, well, she fought for an opportunity and she got that opportunity and she did X, Y, and Z. So she should have been the one, to cover the segment. Everybody liked her more, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, okay, I get their perspective, but I don't see where you think you could just push somebody or force somebody out. Like that right there was disrespectful. On a professional side, because number one, I've already been a student their age, but we are a very different generation. And we're taught loyalty, respect, waiting your turn, understanding when, it's your time to shine, it's not your time to shine. I kind of felt like that was a situation, whereas this person went and selected you to replace them for their segment with the same title, same name. Now that's what people forget. But then it kind of turned into something totally different, as in her name, her segment, because I remember them introducing her. And I was confused because I was like, oh, did she get fired? Like, I was confused because, like I said, I only watched the show in spurts because she was on the show. And I was like, okay. So when I kept seeing everybody talk about the comments and who liked who better, and then I found out she went to Delaware State. And then I'm like, I've seen her before, but I don't know where I seen her at. So then I look, and then I could like kind of hear her voice, and I'm like, I've seen her before. So when I went to go research, I'm like, oh, that's the girl from TMZ.
Right.
So she used to have a sec. She used to do reporting on TMZ for
I never saw it,
years.
but yeah, but that's why I heard they made it clear that was her background. Yeah.
Right. So I didn't even know that and noticed that that was her until I researched and was like, oh, that's her. She just looked a little different because she probably was a little younger when I first saw her. But at the same time, like, okay, everybody raving that she went to Delaware State. She did this, she did that. Okay, cool. I will say what she brought was okay. And she was relatable on a lot of levels to certain things. But to me, it was no comparison with what Jess was doing. And what I didn't like is that Jess had to actually go on social media and then rant the way she did. Because in our culture, in our age bracket, what do we call that? We call that crime, right?
I
You
mean, but there's a few things of that. By like, well, one, trying to think, because there's somebody who I don't get along with, which I was going to. I think this person went natural, but basically, for Lauren LaRosa, she looked a little bit different. Like when I was trying to joke but be polite with somebody who will wear, we've learned to say protective styles. So, like, I'll say thanks to Onika Petty, Nicki Minaj, folks who've become proud Wiggies. So, like, as far as of all that, I think about Regine from Living Single, even though I don't think I fully realized that, except for like, when there's a couple of things where they shamed her for her wig or tried to make, put that in the joke punchline, because I don't think I really learned more about the wigs until like late 90s, 2000s. But basically, Lauren is with that. So, like, yeah, when you crying out there, and Lauren, and I think quiet as kept. I googled the ages. I think Lauren's actually, even though she's seeming like the young girl, I think she's actually a little older than Jess. I think Jess was born in 92. I think Lauren LaRosa was born in 91, 90. But anyway, neither. I mean, they're close to their peers. I get it. You don't want to upstage anybody. They have two different skill sets. And even though Jess did make a point about one picking her, and like, how things are with the skill sets and shining and all the other type of stuff, how it is, it's a slippery slope. So it's just like, with that and I think the Lauren LaRosa being from, I'm not because of being from Delaware State, but she tried to be professional. But some people are like, well, she seems like, I mean, I think she's just, I mean, obviously she, her company's called Black Girl Grinding. She does that. I think she's trying to be respectable and she's trying to build the weather. And I get that. Jess has what she had before the Breakfast Club. It'll be there afterwards, but still, like, we'll see if there's going to be a long tenure, if it's going to be a short tenure with that. Some people say DJ Envy was in his feelings.
She ain't going nowhere. If she got to leave, I'm boycotting. We're gonna
No,
tell them
I
this.
don't know. I'm pretty sure they're not going to push her out. And I think they found the diplomatic way of doing that. Because now I said this because I've gotten more involved with the comments. This is one thing I've done in 2025. That I used to not write in the YouTube comments. I'm writing a little bit more of that. I think it's just like the thing of that. Yeah, I mean, it's a slippery slope because I feel like, I'm not saying if they could have gotten rid of her that they would. Because the one thing which Jess was critiqued for, and it was rightfully so, and indirectly she's gotten better because they realized people joked on her on the way she pronounced stuff. Lauren LaRosa pronounces stuff mostly correctly. There's something where she got wrong, that I felt like was a rather simple word, but still, mostly she gets her stuff right. But still, like, with Jess, it was getting overly like she was stumbling with the words. And I know that Lauren, because of her being a news reporter, she would research a lot of stuff. I think, and now this is the thing which was funny, but it's cool. And it's like, this is where there might be the kumbaya, because vehemently, I'm glad I said that correctly on the first try. But still, Lauren tripped over that word. And Jess said correctly, vehemently. Like, yo, and there's a couple things to whereas, a couple of tricky words and the reporting and like, over like since that IG live, that some of the tricky words which everybody else is stumbling over. And Jess is like, aha, I got this right. Like, whatever. I mean, but still, like, she's doing her comedy thing, but still, this is kind of like the redemption stuff. So I'm glad because it's like, she's a mother. I mean, because the thing is, we knew it was gonna be tough with that, but like, you have a contract, and like, I don't know what it is with PTO and like this, that, and the third, or like she said, and was, but I mean, in a way, this is, I mean, like, I'm a card player, spades, bid whist, ask about me because I've won some tournaments. Anyway, point being is like, I don't feel like she needs to put all of her cards out there, but like, sometimes they can do stuff from home, yes, and those Zooms work. Whether into the broadcast which I watch on YouTube or any of the other podcasting. Other things are when she tours, which as she should, and more than likely, and I've heard this, like whether you're talking about somebody who's a teacher, if they take off and if they don't have paid time off, but you do shows, even if you don't get the time off, if you're getting paid nicely for shows, if you take time off, you can go ahead and do that. And
but
she
perfect
broadcast
point.
that.
She tours. You made a perfect point. She tours. So why not just bring her in when she's not there, or when she's touring?
Well, I mean, and they were doing that, but then again, they're trying to dog again. That's
she was
where
on maternity leave.
So she was on maternity leave for a rather long time, 3 months, or it might have been a little bit longer than 3 months. So there are some good points that were brought up. One was, well, ironically, how Wendy Williams is in the news, but still, Wendy, when she had such a hard time conceiving her only child, she was like, when she moved from Hot 97 or whatever to Philly and was doing Power 99. She was like, I am doing this show from my bedroom. I'm on bed rest, but nobody gonna take my place. And she could have done that if she wanted to. I'm not saying she had to. A lot of places have unlimited PTO. So with that and bonding and all the other type of stuff, she had that, and she shouldn't be penalized for that. And that's why they weren't going to get rid of her, even though the replacement was shining and doing really well, and rising to the occasion, which is great. But still, that's why I'm saying it's a slippery slope. And I'm glad she's stepping up. But then again, some people were like, it was kind of like HR playing. I mean, I feel like they got a lot of views. I mean, and thankfully it worked for, because I mean, again, like you said, you watch for a lot of people did start tuning in for Jess Hilarious when she got the job. Some people, because Lauren was good with that, tuned in for her. I feel like the way which is set up now is good. I mean, Charlemagne has his stuff that's good. He talk out of the side of his neck with some other things. Same thing with Envy. But Envy was good with some of the stuff like, yo, F them. What'd you say?
Charlemagne's an instigator.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but again, it's like, know your roles. I mean, that's what Charlemagne does. We know what Jess does. Envy doesn't really instigate some stuff or whatever the case, but he's kind of like the what's the word which I'm looking for? Like what Whoopi does on The View, like the moderator type person with the things of like opening and closing the segments. So he does the stuff with that. But he was just like, F them people, as far as like with the comment.
It was sincere, but I still don't think he got the message of where she was coming from. Because
no, I feel like he was sincere.
Just like anybody's friendship. Like, okay, none of y'all had my back. You can't tell somebody that, oh, yes, we did, if they felt like none of them had their back.
I mean, what I felt like was There was a couple people who said that. I was like, and if that's staged, y'all need to get an Emmy award if that really was staged or
I doubt
contrived.
it.
Because
I doubt a
no,
damn
I
well.
felt like it was authentic and was sincere and was heartfelt. I mean, I don't feel like it was contrived, but I felt like there was only one thing towards the end, which Mr. McKelvey was, Charlemagne, Leonard as another person from Baltimore called, was, we've seen how Monique plays out. That's a whole nother
You
thing
know
for
he
another
got family
time.
without surname.
But still with Mr. Six. But anyway, point being is that Charlemagne, I understand he tries to keep it like keep jokes. And with that, because you could tell if they're hurting to a point for a lot of that, I felt like it was not the time, not the place. I realized you try to keep it light, but
He
still
tries
like,
to be
it
an
was not
icebreaker, but it don't work all the time. I
right.
think
It didn't,
sometimes
but
you gotta learn when to play, and Jess was not really playing with nobody.
right.
I
So that's what
felt
I'm saying.
all of the energy that she was putting through that microphone. Like
Mm-hmm.
these are radio waves. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
what it is. Like you tried to play a
Right.
game. That's just like anybody would feel. If you tried to play them, anybody would feel
Mm-hmm.
that way. You felt that way.
And then I
I
had
felt.
this. Mm-hmm. And I had to see some of the backstory of that. So I mean, I felt like what Envy put out was important because it was like, okay, he's like, I feel you. I don't feel like he was trying to gaslight. I mean, there was also some other stuff that she said, which I mean, like Envy acknowledged her, like, hey, welcome back. How's the baby? I've saw some things about like nobody really has to ask about this, that, and the third, but still, like, with that, again, I felt like that energy was needed. They kind of had it out. It was still like loving or whatever the case is. Lauren put her interjection was serious. I mean, and went back to that one thing where she was slighted, but even Jess talked about it from before as far as like when you say shut up here, there, but we understand the hurt. And then again, what was good about Lauren was she went back and acknowledged, saying like it sounds like somebody who's crying out loud. There's other things whereas they said they didn't get along and then they started getting along and realized how it was. So again, how the setup was, and some people were talking about the whole Yee thing. And again, I mean, I understand. I was an undergraduate communications major at Syracuse. So when some people talk about like what Angela Yee said about why did you leave the Breakfast Club, and I heard the backstory and the blogs talk and all the other type of stuff, and she gave the diplomatic answer and it wasn't wrong. And I realized how to speak with diplomacy about certain other things, even if those things were, there's like basically two things can be true at the same time. So a thing of like, well,
I
right.
heard the money was funny too, though. So you got to think about that too.
I
Is it
mean,
really
that's true.
live?
None of us are there with the paychecks. And that might be why they just said that the latest of Lauren and the podcast stuff, Lauren's probably not getting anywhere close to, and that might be the reason why Jess is saying for the moment, whatever. Like she got her check and all that. I probably bet 9 times out of 10. And even if Jess was to go somewhere, Lauren will get for the producer stuff, probably gets a nice check and it's probably a cool check. It's probably not a Jess check. But still the Jess check is probably not an Envy check or a Charlemagne check neither. So
Right.
that's what I'm saying for some other things to leverage. It is what it is. So with what Angela Yee was saying about who wouldn't want their own show and gain up later or whatever the case is, but I also heard there was something where, somebody on the blogs disrespected and her colleagues didn't come to her defense. And then it was COVID and there was some other stuff. And I know she was trying to finish out her contract. And, I think some things she either did from home or whether it was in different rooms in COVID. And then that's where she was trying to phase out. And we didn't know if it was going to be lasting or was what was. So then that made sense because I kind of understood where it was coming from. But when I heard about that and then there was a reference to Yee, I was like, okay, when I realized I don't think it was a blogger, but whatever media person or colleague, and there was a couple of people coming after her. Some of those are rightful critiques, but some of the people were really, really coming hard. And then you don't have colleagues backing up. Because again, you talk about Donkey of the Day, you talk about some other stuff. People can come and do stuff with that. And then I've seen some things that are, and that's what and these broadcast mediums, you come with that. Like I really like the girl, and she's out of the DMV too. It's Morgan Woods. So with
Mm.
Black Information Network, so she does a really good job with. And I remember who was before her, like I forgot the girl. It was an older woman, probably my age range. She might have been a little older or younger. I don't know. But then she went. But Tez Figueroa, I think Tesla. But actually, she came back and did an interview. Anyway, I'm slightly digressing. Point being is Morgan does a really good job. Now I realized that she first time she went on vacation was like a week, and then I think Charlemagne said something halfway slick, but like there's a good replacement. I mean, or a good sub. But then I think Charlemagne was like, oh, maybe y'all can come back. And then Morgan was not amused when she came back. She was like, look, like, I don't think she totally gave him the blues, but you could tell with her face and the way
Right.
things are. She's like, this is my stuff. So don't be talking about like, it's like, it's cool that she's able to fill in for me. Fill in. We ain't sharing all this other type of stuff. So she was like, be clear. She said whatever the case, and she still, I mean, she remained professional about it, but she was still like, matter of fact, like, don't try to shortchange me and play me. You kind of played me with like, like I was gone for a week, and you was kind of trying to play like whoever's filling in is filling in. Don't be saying anything crazy. And Morgan, she's a Morgan State grad. I mean, her name actually is Morgan, but she went to Morgan
Morgan.
State and she did stuff, whatever the case. So she bigs up the HBCUs, but still, like it was a thing of like stand on business. And I mean, radio is what it
But
is. I
in that,
mean,
there
just like
should
if
have been the vice versa with the other segment.
That's what I'm saying. So I mean, everybody's standing on business. I realize people can be cutthroat, but there's still a nice thing. Sometimes I realize, and even how we can. We're talking about radio, and this has gone more than a half hour. I guess it's somehow okay with that, but still at the same time, like I mean, some people can say because like I grant right, I try to collaborate. I believe in community. I know that it can be a frustration for me because sometimes I try to look out for everybody, and people don't look out for me.
But it got to be the
Or
right.
like, so it's just like with that when people step on you for all that, and then that can be cutthroat, or from what we heard about, like, you create opportunities, and then people, like, if you get cut, or whatever, like, people aren't going to go back for you, or, if somebody goes through a struggle and you stand up and then you're struggling, and then all of a sudden people get quiet, you're just like, okay, really? So it's just like, I mean, I believe, yes, God can fire battles and does fire battles. But still, as far as when you talk about the struggle and being discerning about who you work with. But I will say this is another advantage, and why some people still can be cutthroat, but still, like, to whereas depending on what you do on what platforms. I know some people tread lightly. Some people try to walk all over you. But again, like, I joke around, but I be serious about, like, I'm
But
big
some
homie,
people try
baby.
to walk through you, like this
Walk
situation.
over, walk through you, whatever the case is. But still, if somebody does you wrong, and they don't know, and a lot of times they don't know who you know and who you don't know. So a lot of these things can be small circles. I mean, why do in church circles, do in Greek circles with fraternities and sororities, do within the spoken word circles? I mean, you know, Baltimore and the DC area, big but small. When we go certain places across the country, a lot of them looked at us as a good breeding ground, like Philly, DC, Baltimore. And then, I mean, it does go up to, like, New York and Richmond or whatever, like this whole Northeast corridor, like how it is when you go to a lot of these smaller areas. And
Right.
however, like, some of the things especially with COVID, when we're doing all these virtual shows, if somebody gets funny, then it's just like, you can say something, and especially because a lot of us have the same networks. If somebody asks something, it is what it is. Or if somebody does something foul, you may talk to some of your colleagues if you see them doing business like you are, and then you decide what it is. And then you never know how these things play out. Some people will cut off other people because you dealt with somebody who was foul.
Oh yeah.
And that goes both ways. I mean, it's a thing of, you could be doing business with somebody speaks in your ear, and then maybe if something is really whatever, then you cut off the person. Or it can be whatever. Or sometimes people understand that, like, if somebody works, especially if somebody has a regular job with somebody, and it's not just
Right.
performance stuff, It might be like, okay, I know how this person or this organization can be, and I deal accordingly. And then also, if you work with somebody who's kind of like, yeah, you make it clear to that entity, like the streets are talking. Keep on acting up if you want to. Canceling can happen.
Yes,
And I mean,
very
I think
true.
that's what the Breakfast Club was realizing, that they had to play that out carefully. Because I mean, still with Ye, it could have been the end, and it wasn't. And this could have ended real badly, and still could. But it looks like they've played their cards pretty well, and that's a blessing from God with everything that they're doing. Because I mean, everybody's
Yeah, I
done this
think they
stuff, but
just
still, like,
they try to settle the waters a bit.
I mean, a bit. But I think Envy mentioned something about people in the comments, and it's like, screw those folks. I mean, we're doing the Ray G version, but still, everybody's had
But you
stuff.
can't say that though. That's another thing. You can't say that because just like Jess said, those are your listeners. Those are the people who want to be involved. They want to know that they are appreciated for tuning in, locking in, or whatever.
Oh, indeed.
And a lot of
No,
them did come from Jess with the mess segment before she even got to the show. So it's a lot that plays with that. And I think she brought a lot to the table. And the thing about it was that baffled me is that when I was talking to the students, this reverting back to when I got cut off with this crazy internet here.
uh-huh.
The students couldn't identify or recognize the wrong in what was going on. And I'm like, do you not understand that if you was in a professional setting, that if I'm the HR person and I say, hey, we need somebody for just to go on maternity leave, she ends up picking someone. Not that we went to an agency, we tried to look and search for people. She gave this person that opportunity to fill in for her. So my initial thought was when she was returning, she shouldn't even been there on her first day back. It should have already been a transition out, just like it would in the professional world. When you bring in a temp, it's the same way. But if you are having somebody that's on maternity leave, you bring them in, you say, hey, your contract is for 3 weeks, your contract is for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever, 12 weeks. Okay, cool. We have that understanding. But it's like Lauren made her own segment, and then you still had Jess' segment that was over here when she returned. But the listeners loved Lauren. They liked Lauren or whatever that may be. Some people felt like Jess was boring in most parts, or it was just too much. And it's like, okay, but this is what it is. This is what it was before. So what's the issue with it now? And not only that, Jess is torn. She's been doing TV shows, her comedy stuff, other opportunities that come up. And I felt that Lauren would be a good fit for them as well. But to make it whereas they had their own segments, I kind of felt like anybody would feel that way, but I kind of felt like Jess was like forced to share her segment with her. And I
No,
don't
no,
think
that was really awkward when it was like Jess was the mess with Lauren, and that's why she said she released it, and that was cool. But yeah, I think what you said is right. I want to say there's some things to where it's like an education as a long term sub, and I don't know about the teacher coming back, but I guess like if they hired somebody, if I was an interim person, about how that is. So I mean, I get how that is of if you're someplace and there's a transition coming back. Because I want to say quiet as it's kept. I think that Lauren tried in the original audition, didn't get it. And then she made the pivot when Jess picked her to be her maternity leave intern person.
right. And
So it's
once
just
her
like,
leave
with
was
that,
done, she should have been gone.
I mean, no,
She
I
could
mean,
have
I
did
understand that.
whatever.
So,
She could have
however
did
it is,
whatever on
because
the
I
back
think,
end, or she could have helped the show because she was a producer previously. And then I think
I
DJ
mean,
Envy
and
said
that's
that
where she
she
is
was a
now. So, I mean,
producer.
I think, I'm now granted. it
But you
took.
can't be. This is what I'm trying to say. You can't be a producer and you in the live show. How that's gonna work?
No, it can, but the thing is, what they said now within the last week or two is basically the latest with Lauren. She only comes in with that. She's technically not a co-host, so kind of like Morgan Woods comes in and does front page news, and that's all she does.
But
Like
does she
technically,
really need to
if
be in the room for that?
she doesn't. But I mean, I think there's a lot of things to whereas let's use the Gen Z. Well, even though both Lauren and Jess are millennials from born in the early '90s, but the whole Gen Z of it's giving like Lauren's attractive. She does whatever stuff in the end. So the things of if she's a producer there, and it's just like she does stuff for camera that like I mean and actually, there's other producers that come in the room, but most of the time, when they come in during Donkey of the Day or whatever, they just walk in, say a couple things, and then go. So it's just like she could do a video segment like Morgan does, because Morgan, I don't think I've ever seen her live in there, but she's based out of the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So it's just like, but still, if you're up there and like, like I said, Lauren's an attractive person. She's working that whole multimedia stuff. There's another thing where she's pivoting or getting Charlemagne to kind of support, but still it's kind of segmenting, which isn't bad. That's what like a lot of these larger syndicated shows do. So it's just like realizing that, and still
So do
also
you
really
think
realize
they play the game? I'm asking that honest question. Do you think they play the game?
it is quite
Knowing what
possible that.
you know about radio.
Oh yeah. So I would say knowing what I know about radio and I see how things are with that. Radio plays a lot of games. I've been part of that. I mean, not me playing, but being played. I realize how it is or understanding what it is. So like, realizing being interviewed, doing interviews, there's a game towards that. I get it. And then also, even if I bring in, because I watch a lot of my stuff digital, like say, I don't think it's quite set up like this, but like I know for like the View, they have like five panelists, and then like Ann Navarro, Whoopi's not on the View on Fridays. I want to say Joy Behar's now on Mondays, so Anna's kind of a floater and puts in there. So I
Mm,
realized that like for the thing of I know Envy was doing something at Hampton University, he's a Hampton grad, that Lauren rarely replaces or has never replaced Envy, but realizing
right.
that she's a good interviewer and reporter, when the Felicia Rashad segment came on, she was in there. I think there was another thing where they were doing another long interview segment and Envy wasn't there, but she was able to be in the room. And
Right.
there's a benefit with that, and she's a producer, so and she and Jess were able to bounce off of that. So I mean, I think from that floater standpoint, Charlamagne probably won't allow that for himself, but still like a lot of
Right.
times, but still with the whole Jess
But he
thing
definitely
and
wouldn't allow that. You ain't gonna replace him. Not him.
right.
That's Wendy's.
I
That's
get
Wendy's protege.
no, I mean, no, I mean, I get that, but still, there's with radio, you gotta know how to work that, or even if I mean, and I think the real well, this is where it would be chestnut checkers. So for a thing of because I mean I've seen hair pieces on Jess, but because it's a lot more prevalent on Lauren, they do that with the jokes and everything with that. The running joke of Envy being Dominican. He's not. He's from Dominica, which is a Caribbean island. And it's not like whatever. I mean, but even though like a lot of Dominicans are fair skinned or whatever the case is, that's a running joke about that. So I mean, it's just like no, I mean it's a fine line because it's just like a lot of stuff of like doing the dozens here, there, or if you work with certain people, like you gotta know because you gotta have banter. It gotta be lighthearted. Everybody's going into the job mostly. It's just like what is the fine line of you joning or don't go too deep with that. So even though they got the I mean yeah they're alphabet community friendly LGBT plus, but still Envy and Charlamagne go back and forth with that. Some of the girls say, whatever. I mean, some of the female panels says stuff. So it's just like, knowing how to work that banter accordingly. Or some stuff is just like, how not. And honestly, quiet allows is kept, because I've heard this with one of my favorite shows, Living Single, or just a lot of the comedy or sketch shows or whatever the case is. I mean, maybe they're not live sketch shows, but still some of that banter of when you have stuff organically. I know the rhetoric, when he says like 1978, or when he talks about Donkey of the Day, and most of it, I mean, I realized because I grew up from fifth grade, they're like, when it says like all the crazy people, even though I haven't heard him say anything from, he'll say the banter about the Bronx, but in all of Florida, and one of Donkey of the Days from Florida. But still, it's like playing off of that banter and knowing how things are. But I heard the well, I mean, oh, you made the donkey sound, but still, like, the thing is like, what was it? I know what it was. Kim Coles, like with Living Single, like they did a lot of their sketch stuff, and then they wanted to do some big jokes, and then they're just like, because she was picking up weight, and it's like, we're not doing that. There's other ways of being funny, or whatever the case. So, and that makes a stronger case for what Jess was going through. That if
Right.
you're really a strong unit and there's some discord, how do we address that? I know sometimes you got to push on, but again, it's a fine line, because if it's not, then you might have situations like that happening. And thankfully it worked out, because again, even though I've referred to The View a few times in there was something, I guess, when The View won an Emmy and Sarah Jones was in there, and Sarah Jones' contract didn't get renewed. Then Sarah Jones, in her fashion, was just like, I done pray. And then the next day, Barbara was like, we don't know why she decided to say all that. And like, no, she was gone. However, that she had until the end of the season, but we escalated that after. I mean, so it could have been rest in peace, Barbara Walters, but still, I mean, even though she did come back for like, but still, like, Star was like, no, I'm going to be a star. I'm going to say whatever else. And with the way that, then it was just like, no, that was your last day, because she decided to speak up at that time. So it's just like, that, like I said, it could have gone terribly wrong, but how they navigated that is a blessing. It doesn't always go with that. It seems like it's going well, but, as somebody said, actually, our friend, shout out to Katrina Watson Ruggless, who used to be with the University of Pikeville, but she does stuff in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I got booked twice at one time.
I need to visit her.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, I'll put you in contact if you're not in contact with her on social media or anything like that. But basically, I mean, she's in Cincinnati. But basically, like, she used the acronym with the whole poetry. And I never heard when I got one of the biggest, poetry contracts in my career, and somebody stepped out. They had a right to cancel. They didn't have a right to get money, and it got pretty ugly as well. But she used the term lipo, like let it play out. So certain things about like how things are, there's discord, dissension. I mean, but the thing is,
that's the number one thing that I don't like.
Ideally, do that, but I'm just saying sometimes that will eat you up. Because again, we talk about how like people feel like you're a doormat.
There's ways that you can process that, because sometimes when you blurt out or make rant,
don't blurt out. Don't do that. No, not at all.
It just it rubs everybody the wrong way, like it did now. And I did not like seeing. I didn't even watch the whole rant, but I did not like seeing her in that vulnerable state, and then having to make it seem like she had to defend herself by herself. That hurt me in seeing that. And then you had all these people talking about, oh, she just being a crybaby. Oh, it's postpartum depression. I'm like, really? Like,
that's sketchy. I mean, you might think that in the back. I think the postpartum is like, you might think that in the back of your mind, but you shouldn't say that because you're not her.
Oh well,
but still, like you can't tell anybody how to feel. But still, I mean, I'm glad it seems like, even though I'm sure some things were still camouflage, it seems like, we've had some good discussions about it. I usually try to stay out.
Hold it 1 second. much.
They seeing you. Oh wow. So disregard the background. See my lovely, because I live in the bricks. What? So he just got up off of the place where he was. So again, we usually hit you in the morning. You can follow me at Big Homie Poetry, BIGHOMEY. We try and get our followers up on TikTok, or my followers. I still, that's another discussion for another day, because the more and more I see TikTok, it's interesting. It has its purpose. I just feel like with some of the things that sell, things that are sold, like it's sketchy. But mostly I like TikTok when I would see those small skits. And that's partially, excuse me, with me being a performer. But outside of that, the rest of the stuff, well, we'll work with the different lives on Instagram and I don't know about Facebook, TikTok, but follow on all the platforms. Send us ideas of what you want us to discuss. We're good kind of freelancing stuff, but how it is. And now, off of the Big Homie commercial, back to Mr. PG just laying it down.
I know you ain't take my segment. I know you ain't take my segment.
No, I just made sure. Again, I've been training radio.
You running over stuff. This what we doing?
I'm running over nothing. I just thought it was interesting you laying down that they couldn't fully. If you didn't move, they couldn't fully see. You kind of look like you sitting.
I'm tired of this world. I'm tired of people. I'm tired of all of the crazy.
He's trying to say the world is ghetto people. But we trying to get past the ghetto-ness. We're trying to get past the ghetto-ness of Earth. But
yes, because I'm from another planet. I'm not even supposed to be here.
Because you're out of this world.
Out of this world.
Right.
But no, like that really disturbed me this week. And it takes me back 2 times where you felt like you are all alone and by yourself, and you got to defend yourself in situations that you really didn't put yourself in. And it goes and speak volumes. And I was telling the students this that I was talking to on campus last week. I'm like, if someone give you a resource, use that resource to the best of your ability. Right. I said, but sometimes it's not always a long time. So you have to understand that you use this for as much as you need it for that short span of time. You also ask the person who gave it to you, what do they think about X, Y, and Z with you moving forward with whatever it is or whatever person it is, because you never know. It's not stepping on toes, but it's a level of respect and loyalty that you need to have to that person that puts you in play. I'm trying to think.
I mean, I feel that I'm a very loyal person, but again, with realizing people don't reciprocate that loyalness.
Most definitely. This is why we're here. Most definitely, and this is what led ultimately both of us together, because we've had situations with people that, number one, we've trusted, or we tried to collaborate with, or do X, Y, and Z. And it's either it wasn't a good fit and we moved on, or it was some dirt that was thrown, and we had to bury things and make it what it was. And that's either a never-ending situation or something that maybe later down the road, just not right now.
Right. Yeah, actually, we could preach about the chief cornerstone, right? Because the whole part. So no, but I understand what that. So like I said, I mean, you gotta check with loyalty. I mean, or when we say chestnut checkers, there's certain things of, again, some things aren't the fault. You want to try and navigate stuff. You don't want to really shame when people have a moment, but still, when there is a point of vulnerability, who's going to take up your back? For
you gotta know your time in that moment, though.
Right.
You gotta know your time. Just like a stage production, you're not the main character. So that means when it's your time to shine, you take your couple of minutes or your set, you do whatever, and you bounce.
So I mean that's another thing of discernment, because I do love that about what And it's interesting because I just saw something today. I only heard bits and pieces. I got to do a deeper dive as far as somebody tried to chump our, you know, hero. And we don't even need to put a white comparison because he's just our hero in acting, Denzel Washington. So somebody was trying to just minimize. He's like, look, like, no, I was a stage performer before I was a movie person. I'm back on stage. Any questions? And then they tried to white explain. He's like, let me say that again. So he's like, but now all that as far as, I mean, from what I heard as far as with, whatever, that he's done business for like his acting, and like, why are you trying to minimize his talent? As far as with that, some things of when you're a movie actor, you got to do stuff over and over and over. But when you got to do stuff for the stage, you got to be ready for that thing live, be able to put it out there and do what you got to do. So he said that. But also with another brilliant actor. I mean, and we're saying actor by not saying it's non-binary, whatever the case is, but still, Felicia Rashad can be called an actor, even though we say actress for being female, but still, it's also actor. She was saying with her doing her Broadway stuff, she's like, look, it's timing. So even though, and she's doing theater, and I think she's actually supposed to be in DC this week, bringing forth Chadwick Boseman's play, which he wrote. And I think his wife, and there's going to be some other folks there. So I think that's supposed to be, I don't know if it's going to be in Crampton, but we can look that up. But basically, the long short with that was she was saying, somebody referred to the two most iconic things during that podcast interview. So everybody remembers Vanessa. I mean, for people who follow the Cosby Show, Vanessa and the Wretched going to Baltimore. Like, whatever the case is. So she said, the lines of like, people can feel that. And she talked about her upbringing and all that, but she said that it was the way those lines could be delivered and wouldn't have hit like it did. But she delivered it a particular way to where that was a classic scene of a parent's anger and rage and however it was. And then also another thing where there was anger, black mother, matriarch, or whatever it was the scene of Elvin and the coffee. And like, with the thing of like, let me tell you, you ain't gonna have number no ever. Like, all that. And she just going in with that. So,
No,
I mean, there
don't
is a
think
method
Dr.
acting.
Huxtable's coffee.
Right, exactly. So she said that because Claire Huxtable had the perfect clapbacks, but still, like I said, for some of the most iconic scenes through that whole series, it was the way in which it was delivered, because it could have been delivered and it could have been very mid, or it could have been okay for the scene, but still, it was classic to where, again, I mean, the show's been off the air for over 30 years. It was from 1984 to 1992. And even when certain people talk about, and also think about it, really with that 2 of the 3 people who were interviewed, like the younger one was born the year the Cosby Show went off. But still, we can talk about how regal, Felicia Rashad is. So again, that type of longevity, or like, how to say it, the timing, all that. And actually, if people really take, say if, I studied theater in high school, not really. I took some stuff from my African American studies minor, but still with that in journalism, especially broadcast journalism, and with this podcast world, a lot of it is timing. However it hits, because sometimes you can interview and say stuff, or especially with comics, because comics very much about timing. Because if your timing is off, you're not going to get the laughs. And if it's stand up, then that's a very dangerous thing. And there was one time where I knew a local comic, and there was a lot. This was like church comedy, and he was up with a lot of big wigs of the late '90s and late '90s, early 2000s. And his timing, when he got his one shot, he had the perfect timing. Now, Grant, I saw some of the things. I don't know if I said his name or not. I probably won't. But still, I've seen him one time within recent years, like the last 5. But basically, there's sometimes early where it wasn't funny. It was just the timing was off. And some of those things, it looked painful. But like the timing wasn't right. And then there was some times where the timing was perfect. And he was hilarious because the timing was perfect. So, there's a lot to say about discernment. And even all y'all who want to tell people off or whatever the case is, there's a time for all that. And then it's just like also the delivery. I always say this as an educator. So all y'all, especially teens and older, but I've even said this with some of the younger kids who feel big and bold, that they can talk to adults any type of way. I mean, I've said this since the 90s, before everybody y'all were born, that you can say anything to anybody. There's a way of saying it. That does not mean that you're sugarcoating or whatever the case is. I mean, it's just like what we say when I work with elementary. Use your words. Use your words creatively. I'm always going to try to be respectful. If people come at you crazy, and again, because people be full of themselves, I give you a lot of warnings. Anybody who knows Big Homie, well, look at all this. I will give you warning with your face, with my face. Like, I mean, and really, I call this the black ancestral look. With the answer, if I bring the ancestors across my face, if you pay attention, you will get your life. Because Claire Huxtable was very good with that too, when on the show as far as the cop. So again, with that, use your discernment. Because a lot of times people just want to be,
one of her acting disciplines. Just listen right quick, and this one floored me when I first heard it.
You see, you gotta be like that. I'm sorry, Mom. Right? Keep going.
Don't that look like the Lord? What? Don't that look like the Lord?
Don't what?
Don't that look like the Lord's done membered you?
That look like the Lord?
Don't that look like the Lord's done membered you? Yes.
After you did all that.
Woo! That's that acting discipline, right? She said, "Don't what? Don't what?" And then this is what killed me when I saw that, is because, like, I catch myself sometimes when I talk to younger students. It's like, "Oh, dog, don't talk to them that harsh." But sometimes you need that grit behind it, because it's like, if you say it again, they know what you're talking about, and they're going to correct it, because they're like, "Oh," and their brain is all scrambled up. So they're going to be like, "Okay, you mean this and not that." And when I saw that acting discipline she did, I was like, "Oh." And I used to just watch it over and over and over again, because it gives you a different element, a different view every time you see it, because it's like, okay, I could say it a couple of different ways, but the way I say it is like how you say it. The way you say something that you could say anything to anybody, but it's the way you say it, but it still could be said. So that was interesting. That was very interesting.
I mean, like I said, it's very important. I mean, well, one, like I said, everybody want to cuss everybody out, and you don't necessarily need to do that. But two, there's certain things of we made this joke, especially when I was working at elementary school, because sometimes they would say, like, I mean, sometimes your voice needs to get loud, but especially, I'll say if old, there probably can still be something like, and like, I mean, I know I'm playing loud, but still, sometimes when they see that, it's like, okay, you need not to ignore. If I mean, I'll get in people's faces, but there's certain things, and sometimes that would get all their little bodies still, and be like, oh, I need to switch up. At least old school, like, when I was working with kids in the 90s, like, it started changing some as far as getting older, but still, there's ways of doing it, and we don't want to lose that, because again, platforms like this, we want to empower the youth. We want to empower kids, but still we're trying to work past that entitlement. Because even with that, and that's, I mean, I know we're probably past time. We're probably going to be trying to wrap up, but still, like, as far as with all of that and you might feel a little entitled, but it's like how to navigate. There's a vulnerability, and it could have went bad for any particular party. But still, like, how do you respectfully stand your ground, say what you, depending on whether you feel like try to speak your piece, speak your truth, still try to do it as respectful as possible, and say, like, maybe how you felt like you were disrespected. But sometimes people are so entitled by, like, I need this, this, and this, bump the rest of y'all, It's about me. It's about me. It's about me, and whatever the case. And then, I mean, especially as an entrepreneur or whatever the case is, are y'all okay? We back. So like yeah. So but like I said, it's a fine line. But still, but I think as if you've caught bits and pieces of our past podcasts, it's just that you want to build a relationship. Mr. PG's been in your village. You know, big homie. I haven't talked to anybody directly outside of when we've done interviews, but still we're all part of a village and we try to be there for one another. So
they see you. They see you.
Yeah, so I mean, so like, yeah, so that's what I'm saying that, and also realize this that okay, like he said that they see me, and I realize I've done pieces like this poetically or whatever the case is. I never know who I affect. You know, there's two things to where I may feel like okay, this is for nothing, and the one poem which I encapsulated when I said seeing somebody in the Walmart 15 years later saying Mr. Banks calling my name, I have no idea who this person is. And I was working as a sub, so that means I didn't do a whole lot with this child. But they knew who I was. And then also during the pandemic, I went back to a particular county. But when I was working with a county in the 90s, it was like, somebody was like, you look familiar. So one school that I didn't work at, so one school that I did. And I think she called my name without being provoked.
That ain't me.
So again, so for that being like the fact that I worked with you and when the year started with 19 and it's like 2022 and I see you in the Royal Farms. So I mean, I'm just saying for the fact of somebody can remember or put two and two together of like, yo, this impact of, so again, you may not know how it is in the village and even with who you work with, because I've worked with interesting admin, I've worked with interesting parents, I've worked with interesting teachers and all the other type of stuff. And still, I mean, as we started off this segment or started off this podcast, Queen Mother Rashad, as far as what Felicia Rashad was talking about, be light. So even if somebody tries to put out your light and dim your light, you do what you called to do. When it's time to move on, you move on. And then just trust the seeds that you plan for that season or what they're supposed to be. And God will keep you until like the next assignment and everything that you do. And then just trust that the seeds that you plant will produce fruit that remains. And I know I've prayed that over a lot of folks as far as that. So again, I do my service unto the Lord. That again, I mean, I want the finances to line up or whatever. I'm not saying everything's always easy, but still, like, as far as with that you're trusting, even if somebody does try to bulldoze over you, that you do stuff in an earnest way and that God's going to attract to you what you need on your college campus, on your high school, junior high school, or who, for however you need to be. I did debate in high school, not knowing. I mean, I think I always knew I was doing public speaker since like junior. I ran for student government and all this other stuff. But seeing how all that evolved, I wasn't always doing poetry. I did certain other types of performing, but all that worked together for the good. So again, as y'all do certain things and learn, like, whether with math, science,
we call that developing skills.
Right, all that. And you never know how you develop skills. He missed the personality. He does stuff. So again, a lot of those things, you may not sing, or you might have sang in elementary school or did some other like, art stuff, but still, that might help you with presentation stuff. Even if you do something a little bit more behind the scenes, like they said that with, I know somebody who's a recruiter of some engineers. I've heard with engineers, like if you communicate a little bit, you earn like at least $10,000 more. So it's just like with all that there's certain things where everything can kind of come together really good, or for a lot of us who are more communicators or humanities or whatever the case is, the fact that if you can do some of those mathematical things or science things, that can bring more to the table. I mean, I probably will close out with this for the fact of like my latest role is teaching Spanish. I do okay. I try to encourage those who are learning English. Well, I mean, I'm teaching Spanish speakers how to speak English. My Spanish is, but I've done a lot of studying. Like Duolingo, I've been studying for about a year and a half of that, like consistently now. and I took 3 years in high school and like 17 credits in college. So I try to encourage some folks that you may want to be fluent in English. You're here, but still some things of like, if you can read, or I use the example of if there's not Spanish speakers working in a store and there's a Spanish customer and you have these workers who don't know that, I can be a translator. So it's just like certain things of like, you never know how the things are working together for the good. So like I said, stay the course. We're part of your
Working
village.
for
So
my
like,
good.
yeah, for your good. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Working
Yep.
for my good. All right, so tomorrow starts off discipline. So give us a poem on discipline that you can pull and put together. Because word of the day starts actually tomorrow, and
You
discipline will
said
be the
what day starts tomorrow?
word of the day. It'll be
Oh,
starting,
word of the day.
yes,
You
for the
gotta give
year.
me a heads up with whatever else. So, I mean, I think I can pull something real quick. I'm just trying to see, trying not to. We want you to watch all the different podcasts of like that are up. I'm not charged. Again, I know my ministry. I know what is my ministry, what is not my ministry. So we'll kind of do so this is what I think you wanted me to do from before. So again, well, I'm going to do this because you asked me to do it from the last broadcast and I didn't have it ready. But I have it ready now. So this
See
is
how
kind of about
things work
discipline.
out good. You see that? You see that?
So, well, I mean, no, because I didn't have it with me. Actually, thankfully, I was able to recover my notebook from a few weeks ago. So, with this, hopefully I read this correctly. So, again, we've lost a lot of people. Most recently now, rest in peace to George Foreman. And even though I got really researched the legacy of Mia Love, the fact that she was the first Black woman elected to Congress as a Republican, that was interesting. But when our last broadcast, I think it was dealing for Bird Flack. So again, the Flack actually is a good place because again, I'm doing a playoff for her last name. So Roberta Flack, for those of you who don't know, Jesus be a Wikipedia. Look it up because I know a lot of y'all youngins probably are not all that impressed with Lauryn Hill. But still with the Fugees and Killing Me Softly or whatever the case is, but still the flack that maybe
That's what I kind of felt like we are now, the miseducation of America. How about that one?
Well, come on. Oh, that might preach. So like with that. So.
That's my word on Sunday. That's my word.
Yep. So now before I read this closing poem, so again, if you don't know Roberta Flack, some of my things are so you can do a little bit more research. I incorporate song titles in here. Now there's some Howard references in here. And also, for those of you who don't know, we talk about Greek-led organizations. I make some references. Roberta Flack actually, some of y'all know about honorary for what she actually pledged Alpha chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So there's some Delta references in here. So we're gonna go ahead and spit this poem, and then we're gonna go on. So the flack that can be killing me softly, having me wonder where is the love. At first take, when I know that I was born to love, from a Howard Hilltop, a bison who knew half a way, and a Bryson knew not to play. So tonight I celebrate my love for a partner, saying the night to music. As the maxi priest knows, lyrics can teach the most to the least. The black, but the quiet fire, the first time I ever saw your face. That I knew the closer I get to you, the Virginia lover could see at 15 that the fortitude to educate and only a diva could devastate in truth and in service to put you back together again. The flack, the hill, Capital, or Lauren. Back-to-back Grammys be scoring. Mr. Henry's discoveries outpouring that begat Luther, Peebo, Maxie, and Donnie. An oasis of beautiful music, whether it's a Roberta original, cover, or remake. The blue lights in the basement will have you feel like making love. Poem. So again, a lot of y'all may not know all of her catalog. I will, and I'll give y'all a hint. Jesus be a Wikipedia is literal. I will sometimes look up stuff on Wikipedia and be like,
It's
what
actually
are the
funny
major
that you
hits?
say that because I want to do something that's very, very clever as far as titles. So it's going to be something that's new. Not going to discuss it here. We'll discuss it in private. But
Right. That sounds
titles
good.
will
And
be
Mr. Henry's is right. It's still open on Capitol Hill. That's where she got her. Oh, but I think it's like 6 in Pennsylvania Southeast. So that's where she got her start. So again, Roberta Flack is legendary. A lot of y'all may not listen, but Diane Hathaway, a lot of your favorite This Christmas, that's Diane Hathaway. But still, like I said, and all the other stuff. So again, for those of you who are music folks, you really should listen. She passed at 88, but she made a lot of influence. I tried to think about what all the songs are. So again, I probably will release a collection eventually of like all these artists, which I've done that song title, wordplay, and all these other references to whether they went to Howard University or if they're Greek or if they acted out or whatever the case is, some of these albums. But she's most known for Killing Me Softly, Tonight I Celebrate My Love for You, and all this other stuff. Back Together Again. So again, if you see my book, it'll have to be typesetted accordingly in order to have all those different things. So like
right. All right. So as we wrap this up, we want to thank you all for joining us here again on Rose Youth Radio. The open enrollment for the Cool Kids Club will be posted on TikTok. So once again, I'm doing a free seminar for you to get to know me, get to know the life work that I do, also get to know the process of mentoring from K through 12 and college students and those young adults as well who need guidance. I don't never go astray from them as well. There's other things, other opportunities, trade schools and things of that nature, or other interests that they may already have that they're already have their feet wet in, but need more information. This has been a progressive year already, and it's going to get a little bit busy. I'm talking to this one over here, or this here.
No, I mean, but still, a lot of times, and probably in closing, you want to be able to be encouraged of that because sometimes there's not activity and then you can be discouraged. You want to be able to encourage you in your gifts. And
but the schedule is about to be busting at the seams because we have a lot of people that we've already interviewed. Some folks I've already interviewed in the past. I'm just waiting on new dates. And we're still going to do the segment by ourselves as well, but we're also going to be showing you all walks of life and trying to encourage you to do more in your own life and in your own path. And in addition to that, I'll be scheduling the lives on TikTok where I will be making a complete schedule. So it will be probably a live every day. But I will have to see what the time frame is. And this is one of my new goals and one of my new dedications. So we also need to get somebody numbers up over here. So I am going to be pushing gas pedal. So we're going to get this done.
Amen.
All right. So once again, thank you for joining us today, and we will see you soon.
See you soon.